We are 2 sleeps away from the 49ers battling the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game. And in a long time, the 49ers are actually the underdogs. I got my boy Marco Martinez to talk everything 49ers and give you the most in-depth preview anywhere. Keep it locked. What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk TV. We have a very, very, very special episode because it's always one of my favorites when I got my boy Marco Martinez on the show, my guy. How are you today?
Hey, man, how's it going, man? I appreciate you for having me on. Really do. Love
Yeah,
being
man,
on this.
it's always fun with you, Marco, because I think you got a different take than most, and you're way more tapped in than most people, and people don't realize it because you're so humble about it. But you're one of my favorite guests. So let's get into it, Marco. Look, NFC Championship game. We all know what's up for grabs. Philadelphia Eagles, great team, right? Historic team. Their defensive line has third most sacks ever in a regular season with 70 sacks. Their secondary is prolific, number one pass defense in the league with all pros on every level there. Their offense, one of the best wide receiving duos, if not the best wide receiving core in the league. Great running backs, and they have a MVP caliber quarterback. Sounds daunting. How do the 49ers pull this upset off, Marco?
I mean, the thing you forgot to mention is the 49ers have an all-pro linebacker, an all-pro left tackle. They got one of the best running backs in the NFL. They got Deebo Samuel, who was an all-pro receiver last year. You got an all-pro safety. Let me keep going. You got Nick Bosa on the defensive line. You got Arik Armstead. So you got a bunch of dudes on the other side too, right? Like It sounds daunting when you talk about the Eagles, but then it's like, hey, bro, like we have these two dudes over here too. Like I'm seeing a bunch of people on like social media that are clipping like NFL Network and all that, and it just makes me laugh. I don't watch that stuff no more because these dudes are doing it on purpose because they know certain fan bases are going to give them that traction. They're going to give them that attention. If you talk about the 49ers like they aren't good when they're in the NFC Championship, the 49er fan base is going to rally to that. Like they feed into it, right? But I don't really think it would be an upset if the 49ers pull it off, right? Because like the 49ers are a legit team. They're the 1 and 2 seed for a reason, right? Like it's not like the 49ers are like the 6th seed coming in trying to play underdog. I want to say the line last time I checked was like at 1.5 points. So that's pretty much said. That's everyone saying that like the betting line is, since it's at 1.5. Normally a home team gets 3 points usually,
right?
Just home. The fact that it's at 1.5 shows and tells everyone that they all think this game is much closer than the public, right? So the great question is, how do the 49ers pull the upset off? I'm going to say containing not AJ Brown, but Jalen Hurts. Keep him in the pocket. If you can keep him in the pocket and prevent him from running the football like he normally does against teams, breaking that contain when you're rushing, that's where you could get into some dicey situations. I think the biggest situation for the 49ers has been when they play mobile quarterbacks, their defensive line tends to get out of their rush lanes. For example, we look at Marcus Mariota with the Atlanta Falcons. That game was one of the games that 49er fans got pissed off because Marcus Mariota ended up looking like a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback for some reason that game. Why? Because the 49ers allowed him to get comfortable by running the football. I think you have to make Jalen Hurts uncomfortable and force him to stand in the pocket all game long and deliver. Now, the problem is he's actually a good pocket quarterback that many people don't realize. They hear Jalen Hurts and like, oh, he's a running quarterback. He's actually a good quarterback from the pocket. So then that's where when I said AJ Brown is Charvarius Ward needs to be able to man up with AJ Brown and have a great game. Because if you could take AJ Brown off the game, I'm willing to bet that D'Amico Ryans could do things with the defense. That if you have their main player, which is AJ Brown, if AJ Brown is struggling to get yards and do stuff, then that offense isn't the same offense. When AJ Brown's going, that offense is going. To me, that's the biggest thing, and that's exactly why Jalen Hurts has taken his jump to that MVP caliber level is because of the AJ Brown addition to that offense.
Yeah, Anthony, thank you for joining in. Heard someone say experience doesn't matter, but I do think Kyle Shanahan and 9 years vets on the team has an edge due to experience. What do you guys think? Yeah, Marco, I mean, that is one thing, right? This 49ers team has been in the NFC Championship game 3 out of the last 4 years. There's a lot of players that have been on all of those, NFC Championship in those NFC Championship games. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan has been a coach in all of those games, has won one, lost one, and we'll see about this one. What do you think? On the other side, Sirianni, this is his first time as a head coach in the championship game. This is Jalen Hurts' first time in an NFC Championship game. A lot of the players on the team, it's going to be their first time because obviously the Super Bowl winning team, I think there's very few vets that are still on that roster. But how much do you think experience plays a role in how this game finishes?
So I think experience matters to an extent, right? Because Nick Sirianni, yeah, he's a young coach. It's his first go around in the playoffs and everything. I think it's his second. I want to say they made the playoffs last year, I believe.
Yeah, they were one and done last year.
Yeah, so they were one and done. So he has experience in the playoffs, but I think experience matters only when you're going on the road, right? Because when you're going on the road, you're going into a hostile environment. That's when things start getting dicey, right? That's when you start realizing, hey, which teammates are made for it, which teammates aren't. And I think the 49ers have a very tight group. They have the tightest team in the NFL. So going into a hostile environment like that, with that tight of a group, is the best thing to do. I think that's what separates teams from being able to go into a city like Philadelphia and take over that stadium. I don't think experience really matters for the coaching. I think they're going to still call their game plan. They're going to still do what they got to do. We could say the same thing about Kyle Shanahan, right? There's a lot of people that criticize Kyle for not being able to win that big game. So realistically, does the experience from the Super Bowl in 2019, did that matter last year when he had that experience? No, it didn't. He had the Super Bowl experience over Sean McVay. Sean McVay had experience in the playoffs, but Kyle had gotten to that big stage, right? It didn't matter. So realistically, I don't think experience matters for these coaches because realistically, it's all about execution, which team executes the most. And I think these dudes have been playing in the league so long. Jalen Hurts has experience in a national championship, which is a big stage on the college level. The same could be said about Brock Purdy. What experience does he have going on the road into a hostile environment? And he mentioned Seattle Seahawks game. It's not going to be nowhere like Seattle.
Right.
The Philadelphia fan base is 10 times more excited than that Seattle fan base, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I push back a little bit. I do think that experience is going to matter because if you look at the Eagles this season, they've had very few high pressure type situations, right? So, and even with Hurts, right? Hurts came off a shoulder injury, right? Where he missed a couple of games, and he played the Giants twice, the Giants JV team, and then he played the Giants, which didn't give him much pressure, right? That's not going to be the case for the 49ers. The 49ers are going to be there. They're going to be able to throw. The Eagles are going to be able to throw their power punch, and the 49ers are going to be able to absorb it and throw that back. it is yet to be seen how Sirianni, how Hurts performs in that type of situation. We don't even know, is Hurts' shoulder all the way ready? Obviously, I don't know I know you're not watching national media, but there's this like narrative they're trying to create where AJ Brown might be a little bit disgruntled as far as how he was utilized in that playoff game last week. So I think when push comes to shove, and let's say the game is close in the fourth quarter, time management is going to be important. Play calling is going to be important. And Kyle Shanahan can at least lean on that. He's been in these moments. He's been in these close games. Whether it's been a win or a loss, he knows what choices to make, what decisions to make. Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's going to be based off of experience, but I mean, based off of execution. But at least he might not feel the pressure and maybe make those mistakes that he made when it was his first time around, right? People still mention in the Super Bowl when he was the offensive coordinator how maybe the moment got to him and he didn't stick with what was working and ended up making, being a little bit too cute. Fast forward to last week, Kyle Juszczyk came out and mentioned that, hey, things weren't going well in the running game the first half, and they ended up getting word to Kyle Shanahan that we need to start running it, up the middle and, start going back to the power attack. And in previous years, maybe Kyle Shanahan would have just doubled down on what he thought was going to work, but he actually made the changes, and they ended up, having a much more successful second half. So obviously, Kyle Shanahan has evolved and has become, a better play caller and a better head coach overall. I do think that it's yet to be seen. Maybe Sirianni is just a genius and he'll play it the right way. But we've seen coaching and bad coaching. Even last week with Dallas, Mike McCarthy made some really questionable decisions. You saw Dalton Schultz make some really rookie moves, even though he's not a rookie. Like, I think that was because the pressure was on. If you go back, I don't think Dalton Schultz is going to be like, I didn't know that if I go backwards, it doesn't stop the clock, or I didn't know that you need to get 2 feet in. I don't think he's going to say that, but you got to think that the pressure got to him. And so how does the pressure, if the Eagles are in that same moment, how does a Jalen Hurts respond? How does a AJ Brown respond? How does a Devontae Smith respond when this is probably their biggest moment in the NFL, right? I do think there's some validity to that.
No, I agree. Like the pressure is going to be there, right? But like the pressure versus if they're in Levi Stadium versus being in Philly, right? Like you're not going to have a cheer if Philadelphia goes 3-and-out, right? You're not going to have a bunch of Niner fans light up the stadium with the crowd going crazy. No, it's going to be a quiet crowd, and then when a big play happens for Philly, the crowd's going to go. So that's when the moment, like, where you got those butterflies goes away because right. Everyone in that stadium has your back. Like, they're with you. So you don't feel that pressure as much. But I think the biggest thing is in the pressure moments is Jalen Hurts using his legs. If Jalen Hurts could use those legs in those pressure moments, pick up a key third down or a couple third downs, that could change the game because it goes from, dang, I had to call a perfect play call and my quarterback could bail me out. It goes like that where you're able to get bailed out by your quarterback's legs rather than having to be pinpoint perfect like Kyle had to be when the Atlanta Super Bowl or with Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl. He had to be perfect calling plays because of the quarterback he had. Now, Kyle can't get bailed out by Jimmy. We've known this. Matt Ryan didn't bail him out. When Matt Ryan knew, as a veteran, he was labeled Matty Ice for some reason, but then take a sack. He knows he couldn't take a sack. So those are the big things where I think it'll come down to the mobility of Jalen Hurts bailing out Nick Sirianni in a key situation where it should be a high-pressure situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's absolutely could be the case, right? And at the end of the day, a Patrick Mahomes makes any coach look better. Like a Tom Brady makes any coach look better. So absolutely, Jalen Hurts has all the talent and ability in the world to make something out of nothing. But I do, because I think a lot of, the easy thing is like Jalen Hurts' legs because of 49ers' inability to really match up against mobile quarterbacks as much. But it's interesting, Marco. I was looking back at, the Eagles' schedule, And with Jalen Hurts as a starter, obviously they only lost one game, but there was 4 games that were in question where they were really close and could have gone either way. The Arizona game, obviously they lost to Washington, Indianapolis, and Arizona Cardinals. And one of the common denominators in all 4 of those games was interesting to me. Their leading rusher was actually Jalen Hurts. But the other running backs had terrible games, under 30 yards, things like that. So what that kind of pointed to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not so much just like making sure Jalen Hurts doesn't get off with his legs. It's more about making sure he doesn't get off with his legs and everybody else is getting off as well. Like if you can keep him to where he is the main weapon and he has to run to get the first downs, but it's because his running backs aren't having a great game or his receivers aren't having those big plays. That seems like more of what the 49ers should focus on versus just really trying to make sure that Jalen Hurts doesn't beat you. Because at the end of the day, I think that, he's just too talented to be able to really like shut down. But you can possibly shut down Miles Sanders and Gainwell and Boss and Scott. You can, slow down AJ Brown and make sure that maybe Devontae doesn't get off or Goddard doesn't get off. Is that more of a realistic game plan, or does it really have to be, make sure Jalen Hurts doesn't get, 60, 80 yards rushing?
I think the Philly offense, from what I've watched, I think when he's getting off, that whole offense starts going, because what defenses start doing is they start panicking. They start, damn, Jalen Hurts is running all over us, because you hate when it's 3rd and 5 and the quarterback picks up a first down and you had great coverage. So you start doing things out of character. So for example, Arik Armstead might rush out of his lane because he's trying to get that key sack on a 3rd and 4. And the next thing you know, he breaks contain and Jalen Hurts has another big run. So those are actually, they're killer for a defense, because realistically, you're playing great defense and he's still able to pick up key situations. So I think at the end of the day, you want to completely take him out of the game, especially in the run game. So if it was me, I would rather him throw for 340 yards than him throw for 260 and have 70 rushing yards, because those 70 rushing yards are probably going to be on key situations and 3rd downs, or on second and 10 where he picks up a solid 8 yards to make it a 3rd and 2. So for me, I would personally want him to be completely taken out the game in the run game, because he's like, I was about to say that, he's a super smart runner. He knows how to get down. He's not going to take hits outside of the one hit he took when he got injured.
Mm-hmm.
But he's super smart. He'll actually slide, and he likes to get out of bounds. So he's knows how to pick his poison when he does it. So that's the scary part.
Now, we've been focusing a lot on what this defense needs to do, right? Which obviously number 1 defense against, one of the top offenses. But 49ers are going to need to have to put up some points against this team as well, right? And the Eagles defense is nothing to sneeze at as well. And obviously, we have a lot of talent on the offense, but what does the 49ers offense need to look like to be able to really be effective? Because we just saw last week an offense that struggled. They've been putting up 30 plus points in, all of their games, and against Dallas, they were only able to put up 19. And, I don't know if that was more because of the familiarity of Dan Quinn and the way that defense is set up. They have a lot of speed along their defensive line and with their linebackers, or if it is a product of, the offense not executing the way that they need to do. But what should be the game plan for Kyle Shanahan and this offense against a really, really good Eagles defense?
For me, I would love to see Kyle Shanahan use the screen game more than he usually uses it. This is a defense line that's trying to set the record. They want to get the extra 8 sacks, just so they could say we had 78 sacks in a season or whatever. They want to get that number, even though the regular season numbers and all that are different than postseason numbers. These dudes want to get those numbers, right? So you're going to have them flying upfield. That's a great defensive line. Now, if you run the screen game at them, it slows them down. I would like to see Kyle Shanahan get their corners in situations where they're forced to tackle Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. But at the end of the day, you have to run the ball consistently. And that doesn't mean if you're like what Kyle Shanahan did in the first half last week. I love what he did. He continued running the ball even when there was nothing there. He was setting things up for later in the game, saying, I'm going to keep running it down your throat all game long. Eventually, your defense is going to fold. Third quarter happens, continues running the ball. What happens? They score a touchdown, and that touchdown steals the game for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
They ran it down their throat the rest of the game. It was, I believe, 20 rushes in the second half. It was 20 rushes to 9 passes. Run it down their throat. And I think that's what you got to do for the 49ers in order to score points. Now, keep Brock Purdy clean. Brock Purdy last week was bailing out of the pocket way too soon on a lot of plays, wasn't stepping into the pocket. He looked more like a rookie in the pocket, in my opinion, than he has in the past couple of weeks. And that is just him not feeling the pressure at times. Because there's times where the pressure was there and he would take off way too early when he could slide up into the pocket, where they had a nice little pocket there. And if you slide up, that guy goes outside. It's just the little things of the quarterback play that keeps you as a Super Bowl contender or winning a Super Bowl, right? Like there was a play where he should have dumped it off to Debo, ends up getting sacked. There was another play where Debo's running a crossing route. He has to step into that throw and just deliver a strike. You can't be afraid to make that throw. He had about 4 yards of separation. Debo catches. He's probably picking up another 10 yards. And that would have been a big gain. Doesn't do it. Now those are the key things that separate you from winning against the Philadelphia team, in my opinion, which is a lot better than the Dallas team, and losing. If you don't hit those key throws, even when the throws that aren't made sometimes hurt you more than the throws that are made. Because at the end of the day, if you're missing that read, and that read would have been a 40 yard play where you're having those explosive plays now, then that's when the offense starts going, because then now Kyle has you on your heels. The moment he gets an explosive play on a drive, he has you on your heels of backpedaling like, oh shit, what's going to hit us right now? Because now Kyle could go play action, straight drop back, or he could run it down your throat to get on a first down. So for me, it's a little bit of everything. I think the offense can't just rely on Brock Purdy, but I think at the same time, if I'm Philadelphia, right, this is me just analyzing football and taking the 49er putting the 49er fan away, right? If I'm Philadelphia, I'm making Brock Purdy beat me no matter what. I'm stuffing the box. I'm loading it up with 8 in the box at all times. Force that run game to go away. Kyle, you're not running the ball on me at all game. I don't care what you say. I'm manning up with James Bradbury and Darius Slay on the other side. I'll man up with George Kittle too. You're not going to have much time to throw the ball, and we're going to make Brock Purdy beat us from the pocket or on the move. And if you could do that, you have the 49ers in a situation where, like I've been telling you, I don't think Brock Purdy has played as good as everyone's saying. Statistically, it looks phenomenal. But if you look at the tape and everything, there's stuff in there that's like, that's going to be a reason we fall in the playoffs, late in the playoffs. And I've been saying it. I thought this 49er team, even when the 49ers started winning, I've been saying I think we'll make it to the NFC Championship. But sadly, I don't think we will advance because of a situation where I don't want to say Brock Purdy is going to be the reason to mess up, but the limitations of the offense that could only go so far. Yes, they look phenomenal in the regular season, but playoffs is much different. You got to be able to do things that you aren't comfortable doing. For example, the Brandon Ayuk throw on the corner where Deron Bland broke it up. He almost intercepted. If that ball is thrown at the pylon, that's 7 points to start the game. Right. So for me, those are the little things, right? The little things that keep you in tight games or separate you and you run away with a game.
For sure. First of all, blasphemy. We don't need you bringing that negativity to this channel and this show, Marco. But secondly, you're right. I mean, look, the margin of error against really great teams is small. This isn't a team where the 49ers have like leaps and bounds more talent than like most of the teams that they usually play. They didn't have that huge difference in talent when it came to Dallas. That game was a lot closer. That talent gap is even slimmer, if even there, against the Eagles. And absolutely, what you're saying, if I'm the Eagles, I want to put the 49ers' biggest question mark, which is Brock Purdy, against our biggest strength, which is our secondary, right? That's absolutely the matchup that I'd want to see more than often. And of course, that's going to be the Eagles' game plan. Here's my question, and let's get kind of into it. Let's go. If you're going to delve in deep with this defense, name a player that you think needs to have a really big game. If this player has a really big game, the 49ers have a good chance. And let's start with on the defense.
Tarvarius Ward.
Okay.
Showed against DK Metcalf. Wouldn't say he had a bounce back game. He had a good game against Dallas. Not where you would want him. I would love to see him have matched up with CeeDee Lamb every play and not give up anything. I would rather see him in man coverage on CeeDee Lamb last week than Nominal Lenore giving up a 50-yard pass. If he can man up with A.J. Brown and take out A.J. Brown from this game, and we've seen him follow DK Metcalf. So for the 49er fans that say, well, D'Amico runs a cover 3 system. He likes keeping his players on the boundary side and the field side. Well, I mean, he's done it before. If you want to win this game, you got to take A.J. Brown out of the game. If Tarvarius Ward has an absolute stellar of a game like he did in the regular season against DK, where he took DK completely out of the game, the 49ers win. If he could have that kind of game, they win.
I love that because obviously A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf are similar as far as really big, strong, fast, do-it-all kind of receivers. I would say A.J. Brown's actually a little better than DK, even though, DK was more, I guess, had the better quote-unquote college career. But yeah, I think Tarvarius Ward is a great name. I'm gonna give you another name that kind of, I think will be a deciding factor based off of if he has a great game or he doesn't. And that's Drake Greenlaw. And the reason why I say that, Marco, is one of the biggest things against this offense, Eagles offense, is they run the RRPO. Like it's like a run, pass. You know what I mean? Like it's like Jalen Hurts can hold it. They could give it to the running back or they could throw it. And you mentioned it earlier in the show. That gap assignment is extremely important. Like you have to stay disciplined, making sure whatever gap you are in, you have to stay there. And one thing about Dre Greenlaw is he is a boomer bust type player on defense. He will either make a wow play where you're just like, oh my God, he blew that play up with his aggressive hitting style, or he will completely overplay the whatever the action is, and it'll lead to like a big play. And I think that Fred Warner, he's going to be utilized a lot in the passing game because Dallas Goedert, I think he's going to have to play Dallas Goedert sometime, drop into coverage, as well, just because of what this offense does. But I think Dre Greenlaw, if he has a really good game, which we've seen him be able to dominate games, I think that bodes very, very well for the 49ers because their ability to tackle near the line of scrimmage or even behind the line of scrimmage, I think is going to put pressure on the Eagles where they're not used to seeing that. And one position group where I think we are much better than them at is the linebackers. And if our linebackers can play much better than their linebackers, I think that bodes well for our team. What do you think about how Dre Greenlaw can impact this game?
No, I absolutely agree. I think Mr. Interchannel, your Jaquaski Tart to end a Dallas playoff game and drop a pick 6 is needing to step up. You cannot drop a pick 6 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He absolutely hit him in the chest. Perfect opportunity to
seal the game
by making Dak Prescott probably cry mid-game and run the 49ers into victory, right? Instead of having even though Dallas had the stupid play towards the end, if you pick that off, I think it's a better celebration for 49er fans because Dak Prescott would have 3 interceptions, a pick 6. Like that would have been phenomenal because Cowboy fans are saying after that game that they had their guy. So if Dre Greenlaw does have a phenomenal game, there is a higher chance that the 49ers do come out victorious because the games where he struggles in the run game, where he gets out of a gap assignment, there's times where comes back to his old self where isn't making the tackle because he's over pursuing. And he's done that a few times. I haven't seen it in the playoffs yet, but if he does that in the playoffs against Jalen Hurts, where pursues and a cutback happens, then that's where big plays happen. I think if he could get his hands on a ball, people don't think he's great in coverage. He's actually pretty better in coverage than he's given credit for. Get his hands on a ball. All right. They're gonna test you with Dallas Goedert. They're gonna make those those quick out routes. They're going to have those quick passes for Goater. If you could get a hands on your ball, intercept that damn thing. Don't try to be like Kwaski Tart and drop an interception in an NFC Championship game. I did not like seeing that from Drake Greenlaw. It
Right.
upset. I was like, that's how you end a game, man.
Yeah, and I mean, I think tackling responsibilities are going to be extremely important, right? These guys, the linebackers, the corners, everybody really has to tackle well because much like our team, these guys are really yak guys as well. AJ Brown is a really great yak guy. He's able to get a lot of yards after the catch. Devontae Smith, he's fast, so I don't know how, but we just tackling, making sure that even if these guys do break a play, like you're slowing them down as quick as possible and living to fight another down. Let's switch it to the other side, Marco. What player on the offense needs to have a big game for you to feel comfortable with this team winning?
People are probably going to think I'm going to go like a receiver or running back, Jake Brendel.
Okay. Talk to us about why Brendel.
Jake Brendel. If I felt like Jake Brendel and the interior offensive line gave up more pressures than they should have against Dallas, which put Brock Purdy in a situation where he's feeling pressure that's not there after first couple of plays, right? So for me, if Jake Brendel could be able to man down against Fletcher Cox, Hargrave, the Dominican Sue, there's a lot of weight to be thrown around. If he could reach those guys and get to the second level, because I know sometimes Kyle will have him reach on like the 3 tag. Sometimes he has them go up and get a linebacker after a duo block. You'll have him get up. But what I really want to see from Jake Brendel is in the pass game. Can you man up against guys like Fletcher Cox who have power, against the Dominican Sues, the Hargraves? That defensive line is filthy interior. Jordan Davis is there. So, like, that's for me. If there's pressure inside, it's going to throw Brock Purdy off. And if Brock Purdy's thrown off, the whole offense is thrown off, like we've seen in Dallas. Brock Purdy wasn't himself in that first half of the game or the second half of the game, whatever people want to say. Offense only scored 19 points. You go back to Seattle. The first half in Seattle, Brock Purdy was not himself. It was 14-16. The game should not have been that close. Coordinators ended up blowing them out because they corrected things on the offensive front. Kyle ended up changing things up. So for me, if Jake Brendel has a stellar game against the interior of the Philadelphia Eagles, I think we'll be fine. Now, if he starts struggling, it's gonna be a game that could potentially get ugly because that is where the offensive line starts.
Yeah, and I mean, last week I think was the first time I looked at the offensive line, and I'm like, man, they're getting beat up, right? They're getting brutalized, and I thought it was more they couldn't deal with the Dallas Cowboys speed. I don't think that this Eagles offensive line has as much speed as Dallas did, but you just mentioned a whole bunch of very, very strong, productive defensive linemen. I think they have 4 or 5 guys that had over 10 plus sacks, which is unheard of, right? And and their backup guys are guys that are like could be starters on most people's defensive line. So can you go a little bit more in depth about how the offensive line needs to step up, right? Is it just about, hey, win your matchup? Is it just about be stronger than the guy? Because you can't really double team because there's so much talent. You kind of got to pick your poison. But what can the 49ers offensive line do? Because it is a case where they just might be outmatched. They just might the guys on the opposite end might just be bigger and stronger. How do you cope with that if the 49ers offensive linemen are just outmatched?
I think the biggest thing for the offensive line is you're going to have Trent Williams manned up. You're not going to have to give him help at all. Mm-hmm. Now, Philadelphia likes to only rush 4. So if you're rushing 4, I got 5. That means I have an extra guy where I got to slide my protection to make sure I have enough time. Now, if Aaron Banks is dominating, if Spencer Burford is dominating, you could send Jake Brendel the other way, or you could help the other way. You could even help McGlinchey with Spencer Burford if Jake Brendel is able to hold up on the guard, if he could go out and get him and man him up, right? So those are the little things where I'm saying, like, if Jake Brendel has a good game and he's able to, for example, sometimes they line up, I wouldn't be shocked if they line up Hassan Reddick mainly on Mike McGlinchey, but they rotate them quite often. They allow them to go back and forth, him and Josh Sweat. So if they have Hassan Reddick on Mike McGlinchey and he's getting beat, I think they'll eventually will have a tight end or a running back chip. That could help the offensive line. But I know Kyle would rather have his offensive line 5-on-4. You should be able to win that matchup every time. It's 5-on-4. You should figure it out. But it all comes down to, in my opinion, how Jake Brendel, because Jake Brendel is one of those guys where he calls protection a lot of times. How does he match up? How does he call the offensive line? I know sometimes Brock Purdy's been doing it a little bit more that I've seen where he'll check protections. But if Jake Brendel struggles, because they're going to put Fletcher Cox, they're going to put Jordan Davis, they're going to put these dudes right over Jake Brendel every once in a while. How can your weakest – to be honest, I think he's the weakest link on the offensive line. And so did a lot of 49er fans because they wanted the 49ers to go out and sign a center or draft the center.
Right.
Now, he's had a hell of a season. He had a phenomenal season. But he's still, in my opinion, the weakest link on the offensive line. So why wouldn't you try to make that center have to pick up on stunts, have to pick up on certain things? That's where Philadelphia needs to attack, in my opinion, for the 49ers offensively. How do you counter that? Okay, you want to continue to send stunts at me? Okay, I'm just going to check it down to Christian McCaffrey, let him get 8 yards every play. You want to run like that? Okay, then I'm going to run a lot of bubble screens where I'm getting the ball out quick. Stuff like that where it's a quick game now. Okay, you want to play like that? We're going to play a quick game. We're going to knife you down in the quick game, and now you're going to have to, hey, we need to react. We can't just go straight up field and play those stunts or just try to overpower someone and bull rush. Little things that I look at that decide games, and I think if Jake Brendel has a good game, they'll be in a great situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great call. Definitely, I think someone that most people wouldn't pick. For me, I'm gonna go kind of homer, and I'm gonna say I think George Kittle. I think on the offensive side of the ball is gonna have the best matchup against him. Whoever they end up putting, if it's their nickel corner or a safety, he's gonna be bigger, stronger. If he's they put one of their linebackers, he's going to be faster. And obviously that connection between Brock Purdy and Kittle is becoming very elite. And we saw how getting George Kittle the ball and the type of plays he made kind of changed the momentum of the game last week as well. So I think George Kittle is actually, I would kind of feature him a little bit more because, even though I think that these receivers we have can compete with those corners, that's obviously the more difficult matchup versus what George Kittle is going to probably be going up against on each down. So for me, I'm looking at George Kittle to have a big game. And if he has a big game, I think it's going to be very tough for the Eagles to beat, the 49ers. Let's kind of switch it up. Obviously, we just talked about Kyle Shanahan. This is his third NFC Championship game in the last 4 years with the 49ers. If you take it back to, his time with Atlanta, 4 out of the last 7 years, he's been in 2 Super Bowls over that time as a coordinator and as a head coach. He's on the brink of taking his third different quarterback to the Super Bowl. Sounds pretty undeniable, right? But Marco, I've been hearing some guys in the national media. I saw some stuff on the Dan Le Batard show where they're talking about Kyle Shanahan. If he's really that good, how come he can't win with a great quarterback? Which didn't make any sense to me. Like, if you could do it with not so good quarterbacks, why wouldn't you be able to do it with a great quarterback? But there are, I think there's like a split. There's a lot of people that give Kyle Shanahan his flowers. There's a lot of people that still believe he can't win the big game. Talk to us a little bit about how important this game is to Shanahan's legacy.
I don't think it matters for Kyle Shanahan.
Okay.
I don't think in the situation, and the reason why I say this is what Kyle Shanahan has done with the 7th round quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, in the last 7 games. People were giving Brock Purdy the credit. It's not Brock Purdy. You could say it's 50-50. When I see dudes running wide ass open, though, most of his completions, for the most part, are wide ass open.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's literally streaking down the field, 2 or 3 yards of separation. In the NFL, that is wide open. So what Kyle Shanahan has done as of late, bro, it helped his legacy already. helped his legacy already. Now,
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
now, if you don't make it to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, it's what everyone's been saying. He's been playing like a potential starter in the NFL, potential franchise quarterback. That's a topic for another day, right? But what he's done with Brock Purdy has been phenomenal. If the 49ers lose in the NFC Championship again, it won't be because of Kyle Shanahan. It'll be because of how this defense is going to play them. They're going to stack the box, take away the run. Now, what does Kyle Shanahan have to do? Now he has to be perfect calling all his pass plays, all his play action plays. It has to be actually absolutely dialed up perfect for Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy is able to deliver, then that's when you're in a great situation. You don't got to worry about anything because then that shows, okay, Kyle, you have a guy. Use him. Now, people are going to say, no, Kyle needs to use him no matter what. He has a guy already. If he had a guy already, he would have completed a touchdown to Brandon Ayuk. He would have hit Debo on that crossing route that was about 30, 40 yards, would have been 30, 40-yard play. Those are guys, right? So those are changing. Those are the quarterbacks that make it easier to call plays, right? So for me, I don't think it's a legacy game for Kyle. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think Kyle eventually win his Super Bowls here with the 49ers. I think he's the 49er fan needs to understand this. He will be the 49ers head coach until he wants to retire. Plain and simple. He'll retire as a 49er. I'd be shocked if the 49ers did something like they did to Jim Harbaugh, where hey, you've won in the last couple of years, but now that you don't have your roster, you're starting to lose. I think Kyle Shanahan is going to continue winning with any roster he has. Now, we got to remember what him and John Lynch built from the ground up, the foundation is there. They have young people coming in every year. The system's not going to change. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this game could obviously elevate him into a different realm if you win. Because, look, a rookie quarterback has never started in the Super Bowl, which means a rookie quarterback has never won the Super Bowl. If Shanahan could get the first rookie quarterback to actually start in the Super Bowl, obviously he does something that no other coach has ever been able to do. They would be on a 13-game winning streak. It'd be a lot. I think it could really elevate. And it's kind of interesting, Marco. The comp that I always mentioned with Kyle Shanahan as far as how he's reveled by the media is Andy Reid. Andy Reid was, this offensive genius guy, and he was always the guy that was really, really good and everybody respected, but was, kind of had that reputation of not being able to win the big game. He went to the NFC Championship game, I think like 5 times with the Eagles. Now he's in his 5th AFC Championship game with, Kansas City. And he's been to the Super Bowl, 3 times, only won once. It's interesting, though, how like one Super Bowl victory, you have a pass forever. You know what I mean? And so I think that, Shanahan, if he could get that monkey off his back and get that Super Bowl this year with Mr. Irrelevant, first rookie ever to win a Super Bowl, I think he's goated forever. You know what I mean? He'll be able to get away with anything moving forward, even though he doesn't need that pass. I mean, we both believe that, he's just an excellent coach, top down. So I think there's a lot on the line for him. I agree with you. I don't think it necessarily is going to hurt him in any way, but I definitely think it could elevate him to another realm where he's talked about in a different genre of coaches just because of what they were able to accomplish this season.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned Andy Reid, because he had a hell of a quarterback. He had Donovan McNabb, I believe, out there. So because Donovan McNabb was, I believe, drafted in like 99. So he had Donovan McNabb for a long time, six-time Pro Bowler, I believe. That dude was a legit quarterback. Now you can't win with him, but then you win with the best quarterback, probably might go down as the best quarterback of all time. Right. And I'm a big Tom Brady fan, but I do want to, if you could bring a comment from Harold Murillo. It's a lot of Trey fans are rooting against Shanahan and the 49ers. I would disagree. I'm a big Trey Lance fan. I'm a big Trey guy. I'm not rooting against Kyle. I think what Kyle has done has been phenomenal. I think what Kyle is doing with Brock Purdy, and I think Brock Purdy has been solid. I don't think don't know if he's the answer yet. I still need to do a deep dive and watch film. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think people are rooting for Kyle Shanahan or rooting against Kyle Shanahan at all. I think what they're wanting Kyle Shanahan to do. I think people in the playoffs, when they see Kyle Shanahan only score 19 points, that's when they go back to saying, "Oh, Kyle is some kind of not genius, or he goes into a shell of himself." No, the playoffs, you're not going to score. If a team's scoring 35 points in the playoffs, someone tell me where they are, because I would love to watch teams score constantly 35 points in the playoffs, because it doesn't happen. The
Right.
playoffs are supposed to be gut punching games where we're going back and forth throwing haymakers. But I just wanted to say, like, I don't think that's true that people are rooting against them because they want Trey Lance to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than Kyle, maybe Brock Purdy, but anybody that's that devoted to a player over the team,
Yeah.
check yourself a little bit, because at the end of the day, we want the team to win, regardless of who's doing the play calling and all that kind of stuff. Shout out to Dusty for jumping in. All right, Marco, I never want to get you out unless I get to pick your brain on some of the insider stuff that you're so well known for. I know, for the most part, people aren't really thinking about past the season, but hey, we're all hoping that this team wins. I know you don't, you kind of are on the fence. You think that maybe the Eagles take this one. So Sunday could be the end of the season for the 49ers. Knock on wood, hope it's not. But we've already seen some changes in the front office with, the Titans signing away one of the better front office guys that the 49ers had, and making him the GM there. Obviously, D'Amico seems to be the favorite for, a couple coaching positions. So he's all but, out of here after this season as well. Obviously, I've even heard Anthony Lynn is up for, some coaching positions. There's some teams interested in him. So there could be, a lot of shifting going on, not only with the coaching staff, but definitely in the front office. Adam Peters obviously is sticking around, which I know you and I are both really high on. Talk to me a little bit about what this offseason looks like, or what you think is happening personnel-wise. Is there anything that, are the 49ers all right? Or are there some big holes that they need to be looking to fill that we might not be thinking about right now? Give me your overall sense of what this team looks like personnel-wise this offseason next year.
I think personnel-wise, losing Rand Carthen is a big loss. I think he was a very phenomenal scout, very phenomenal guy in the building. He was the 49ers pro player personnel, director of player personnel, I believe. Was he the player personnel, or was he? Yeah, I want to say he was director of player personnel. So for him, losing him, that's a big loss, man. He was a very, very, very good. I would not be shocked if he does great things with Tennessee Titans. I'm expecting great things for him. And
he was one of the reasons, Marco, our team drafted so well later in rounds, right? He was part of that head to that scouting department that was able to find those gems that we constantly see performing in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, right?
Yeah, that was him and Adam Peters. And the good thing is they're keeping Adam Peters. That's a big thing. You keep Adam Peters because Adam Peters wants to stay there. Now, I'm not going to say rumblings or rumors or anything, but there's a chance that Adam Peters can get promoted. In the sense of everything goes perfectly how they want it to happen, things can happen where Adam Peters can be promoted, or at least his role expanded, and that's why he's wanting to stay here, because he understands potentially he could stay as a 49er GM eventually. He's from the area. That's a big gain. So you lose Carthen, you lose Rand, which is a very big loss. But keeping Adam Peters, because I was expected to lose both, keeping Adam Peters is a huge game, right? Because that's everyone expecting to lose. You lose those two guys. I don't know how the front office replaces those two guys immediately. You mentioned offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn heading over to, not the offensive coordinator, but potentially being offensive coordinator with Washington. I believe someone else is wanting to interview him. I don't know if he leaves. I think Kyle might even just promote him and his offensive coordinator, or do something where he could keep him, and then eventually Anthony Lynn could just go ahead and become a head coach. Reason why is you're going to have to go and prove yourself with guys that aren't what the 49ers have. So why not stick with the 49ers?
There's no team that has as many all-pros on offense that you're going to be dealing with like the 49ers, right?
So at that point, you could kind of just stay with the 49ers, become an offensive coordinator or higher role, and then eventually branch off and become a head coach for an organization, because that's probably what's going to happen within the next couple of years for Anthony Lynn. He'll be a head coach again one day. Now, you mentioned D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans, I believe he possibly is headed to Denver. That's what it sounds like. Headed to Denver, which is great for him. I didn't think that was the first choice I would have chose for D'Amico Ryans, only because of the quarterback situation. You don't know what's going to happen with Russell Wilson. Is he going to bounce back? I think he bounces back. I think he needs a leader. I think he needs someone like D'Amico Ryans who instills confidence in him. That defense is going to be rocking. It's a great defense, great pieces on it. So you have chess pieces to play with. Who replaces him? I know that wasn't a question, but who replaces him? I believe Daniel Bullocks right now is the leading candidate to replace him. He's been with the 49ers since 2017. He was an assistant defensive back coach with the 49ers for the last 6 years, or the last couple of years. He's been 4 years, I believe. His first 2 years, he was assistant DB coach. His last 4 years, he was he's been the team's coach. So I believe he could potentially be the next defensive coordinator for the 49ers. I believe he's helped D'Amico Ryans a lot in situations. If you look at the guys he's developed, Talanoa Hufanga, Tashawn Gibson's came in and played phenomenal. Jimmy Ward has played phenomenal under him. Last year, he had Jaquaski Tart playing solid. A guy that is young, played in the league, kind of a mold that Kyle Shanahan really likes. He likes bringing younger defensive coordinators in the league. He likes bringing in
former players.
Former players, but someone who could be creative, because you've played the game. You start doing and thinking things and so many different things. I think that's what Kyle Shanahan is going to lean towards. I think Daniel Bullocks becomes the defensive coordinator, because I believe Vic Fangio is going to be the DC in Miami. So if that happens, then I think 49ers turn straight to in-house and go Daniel Bullocks.
Yeah, and I mean, this is obviously going to be a common theme for the 49ers, I think, here on out. You know, this organization is run very well, obviously performing at a high level, and other teams are always going to try to get whatever, juice that the 49ers have. So we're always going to lose somebody from the front office. We're always going to lose some coaches, and that's great. And that's a feather in the cap for guys like Shanahan, Lynch, that have been able to develop the type of staffs that they're able to develop. My question to you, though, is obviously when you lose a GM, right, he's probably going to take some guys from his guys that are here with the team are going to go with him. You lose a coach like D'Amico, he's going to take some guys with him, So do you think that there's enough here that we will continue to see the type of success that we've seen from the 49ers? Or eventually is it like, because this is like year after year after year, we've lost coaches to head coaching positions back to back years now, and GM and front office positions. Eventually it's like, eventually all these guys are brand new. But I know you're pretty tapped into the team overall. How is the team sentiment about losing these guys? Do they feel confident that they have the guys already to replace, or is there a little bit of, worries, or if they're not even thinking about that because obviously they're still, fending for a Super Bowl at this point?
Oh no, they're still in a great situation. They still have a lot of guys. Guys like RJ Gillen, guys like Tariq Ahmed. I believe Justin Chabot's still around, which is, I believe, he's the assistant director of college scouting. Ahmed's the director of college scouting, and Gillen is the director of pro personnel. So you still have a lot of dudes around like these. I believe Gillen is. I believe he's getting promoted, I think, into Carton's place. I don't know if it's been official yet or whatever, but I believe he gets that title. They have a lot of dudes. Like, they've put together a great staff, and they've developed and they've helped them a lot. I think they'll be fine front office wise. I don't think the front office is going to lack anywhere. End of the day, what Kyle Shanahan and Adam Peters do, they have a great relationship in terms of what they like, right? They give their scouts a lot of things to do, and then they report to them, and they kind of look at stuff. And I believe they have a Kiana Turner. He's around. He's been around for a few years, and he's a special advisor to John Lynch. I'm not worried about the front office, the coaching staff. I'm not worried about that either, because of the fact that we had like 8 or 11 coaches poached last year, like taken from
Mm-hmm.
us. 49ers did perfectly fine. This year they'll probably get coaches poached. And what happens if you're getting exactly 11 coaches last year, and 8 this year, or 8 this year? The reason why I don't think anything is because the main guy's still there, Kyle Shanahan.
Right.
Usually you're expecting a team to go downhill when they lose that many coaches and kind of like have to like sink and swim and try to fight and claw. Nah, 49ers struggled at the beginning of the year. I don't think it was because of coaching and because of the new coaching staff. I believe it was because of the offense takes longer to get come along. No preseason games, so it's harder for people to call plays or harder for people to get in the groove when you know preseason games. That's what I think. I think they'll be fine though.
Yeah, and I mean, 6 years ago, before Shanahan and Lynch got here, this wasn't necessarily a destination that players wanted to come to, coaches wanted to come to, because there was so much turmoil, right? People saw how the Harbaugh situation went down. The team had a lot of off the field issues that were in the news for, not necessarily football reasons. And I think the one thing that Shanahan and Lynch have done is change around the culture here. Obviously, it's a team that's constantly contending, and it's a team where players have fun here. They're taken care of, and they're respected. And I think that coaches also see this as an opportunity to springboard their career. So I agree with you. I think even if there's a lot of coaches poached, which probably would be the case, the caliber of coaches that are willing to come to the 49ers has increased as well, because they trust Shanahan, they trust Lynch, they trust the developmental system here. And any coach looks better when you have this many all pros on whatever side of the ball that you're in, right? When you have the level of talent that the 49ers have, it makes a coach's life a lot easier, front office life a lot easier. So man, it's good to hear. I know, we were talking earlier in the season, this was off camera, where you were a little nervous about what was going to happen with the front office with the 49ers, but it seems like you're a little more comfortable with where they're at now, and things have calmed down a little bit. So I'm glad to hear.
The reason why I felt that way is because losing Rand Carton, man, that's a big loss. Like people, like they hear John Lynch, they hear Adam Peters, and those dudes get the credit. What Ron Carton did, he was a very big piece of the puzzle. So that's why I was like, man, like what he does, he knows his stuff, man. He knows his stuff. So that's why when he asked me, that's a big loss. Oh, yeah. It's a huge loss. Like, but I do believe in the guys that they have, like the Tariq Ahmeds, the Gillens. I believe those guys will advance in their roles, and I think that it's the perfect opportunity for guys to take the next step.
I love that, man. Do you know this answer offhand? Harold asks, how many draft picks will the 49ers gain from staff getting hired by other teams? I think only D'Amico will lead to more compensatory picks, but do they get anything from the front office?
I believe they get two third-round picks for Carson right now, and then if D'Amico's hired, they get one more, so they have 3 in the next 2 years or something like that. They'll get like 2 this year, and then 1 next year, or 1 this year, 2 next year, something like that. I don't know on the rule in terms of if a coach goes from like a assistant coach to offense coordinator or defensive coordinator, that kind of promotion, because it is technically a higher role. I don't know how that works. And then that it would get like dicey, and you have to like read the fine print or whatever on that rule. I haven't really looked into that rule. So I'll do that, and I'll probably try to find that rule, and then I'll either tweet it out or I'll talk about it on my podcast, whatever, or I'll text you and you can post it on your stuff.
Cool. Well, Marco, that's all I got for you, man. I know you got a busy weekend. Man, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. Guys in the chat, thank you so much. Like I said, we're 2 sleeps away from the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. Keep it locked here. I got another show this afternoon with Kelt's Chronicles at 3. Me and your partner in crime, Marco Rohan, are going to be streaming tomorrow in the afternoon as well. You got anything? I know you're away for this weekend, but anything you need to plug before we head out of here?
Yeah, I have a Clutch Gene Sports on YouTube. You guys can go ahead and go subscribe to that. Make sure you guys hit this like button on this one. Make sure you guys debo that like button for my boy Sunil. Twitter, you can find me at Marco_Mark1205. That's pretty much where I'm at. I do most of my stuff on Twitter. Gonna start having weekly shows where it's 2 times a week, probably be 3, depending on how that goes. But for sure, 2 times a week is what I record. Just trying to keep going, man, every day.
I love it. Hey, the more Marco's active in the 49er community, the better the 49er community is, man. I love that you're getting more consistent with streaming, because you're definitely somebody I love listening to and tapping into. But everybody, like I always say, stay safe, stay hydrated. We will talk again very, very soon. Bang, bang, not a gang.